beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today I have a bonus video for you this week because we're going to talk about the newly revealed palettes from Nomad Cosmetics. These are 3 new Nomad Air palettes. I have the original Nomad Air palette here. This is the travel palette, and mine has been very well used and well loved. I actually have kept this in my little travel makeup bag. I have 2 little mostly neutral palettes that I always throw in my travel makeup bag, and this is one of them. Then if I know I want to do a more colorful look, I'll bring a colorful Super Shock shadow to go with it. I have an older video featuring this one, so we're not going to talk too much about the old travel palette today. We are going to focus on these 3 new travel palettes. We have this beautiful color coordinated packaging. I'm assuming that these are going to be the same price as the original travel palette. This is priced at $22 US on the Nomad site. So I'm assuming that these 3 new palettes will be the same price. However, I do have an affiliate code with Nomad Cosmetics. It's just my first name, Amanda, and that will save you 10% on pretty much anything you purchase on the Nomad site, including these 3 new palettes that we're going to dive into today. This is the Abu Dhabi palette, and these are all named after the airports in different international cities. I think this is just such a clever, cute idea. So we have the Abu Dhabi palette, has some warm orangey and reddish brown type of shades. We have probably my favorite packaging on the Oslo palette. This has some gorgeous, cool tones. You know, I love a silver eyeshadow, so I'm really excited about this one. And then we have the Canadian Rockies palette. This has some turquoisey blues and greens. I really, really wish that there was a 4th palette. You already know what I'm gonna say. I wish there was a purple one. We're gonna do it all in today's video. I'm gonna show you close-ups, finger and brush swatches, a couple of comparisons for each one of these palettes, and I'm going to show you this Abu Dhabi palette in action for the eye look that I'm wearing today. I do plan on doing some follow-up videos so that you can see the other 2 palettes in use as well. Let's start with just a close-up look at these palettes and their packaging. First, we're going to look at the Abu Dhabi palette. This is the toasty, warm, orangey reds and browns and coppers. On each one of these palettes, the eyeshadow color story inside is reflected on the outer packaging, and the design on the packaging itself is unique to each palette. So you see here we have these beautiful desert sand dune-esque kind of swirls. So each one of these mini palettes not only has its own unique colors, but also its own unique design. And we're going to see those designs reflected on the little special imprints that are inside the palettes here as well. Each one does have a small mirror. Each one of these palettes has 4 matte shades and 2 shimmers. And just an FYI, all of these palettes are labeled as cruelty-free and vegan. So these are all a green light for all my vegan friends out there, my cruelty-free friends. I'm going to show you some swatches just of the palettes first. So what you're seeing here is the finger swatches on top and then the corresponding brush swatch below. For all of my swatches, I do no primer. I don't dampen my brush. It's just the eyeshadow straight on to the skin, my arm. And I always use my e.l.f. flat eyeshadow brush for all of my swatches so that we have a consistent, as far as the variable of the brush goes, I'm consistently using the same brush through every swatch. Now we're moving over to the cool toned beauty in this collection. This is the Oslo palette, and I love this artwork. Something about this is just so intriguing to me. All 3 palettes are super cute. I love this, I guess I want to call it updated packaging, but we've only ever had one Nomad Air palette before, so I don't know if this really qualifies as updated. Anyway, semantics. As usual for Nomad Cosmetics, their palettes do support a specific cause, and for these three palettes, they share the support of Sustainable Travel International. If you are like me and you've never heard of this organization before and you're interested in checking it out, I will link their website down in the description box. Basically, they support the travel industry in climate action and offsetting carbon emissions and that type of work, which I think is very relevant to the Nomad Cosmetics brand. It ties in perfectly with this palette series, so I think that's really cool. I was interested in learning more about that as somebody who does enjoy traveling. I think that's pretty cool. So, anyway, check out their website if you want to learn more. Let's go back to this palette now. Again, 4 mattes, 2 shimmers. The shimmers in here are both quite silvery. One is more beige once it's applied to the skin, though. And I think this is going to be a new staple for me personally. I've been leaning a lot more towards true neutrals and cooler neutrals. So I think this is going to work great and pair beautifully as a companion with a lot of my other more colorful eyeshadows. So I think this is the one I'm the most excited about. But I love the idea of this more minty blues and greens color story for the Canadian Rockies palette. I'm glad that they didn't just do 3 more very neutral palettes. I like that we're getting a splash of color in here. And I think that this one is going to work nicely with either one of the other two. You can pair this more blue and green color story with the Oslo palette and take it cooler, with the Abu Dhabi palette and take it warmer. So I like this idea. I like this series. I hope that it continues. I would love to see more of these palettes. And I really like the packaging on this one, how it is reminiscent of little pine trees. And again, we see sort of that print reiterated inside on some of the shadows alongside the little Nomad Air logo that's on some of the matte shades. I was most nervous about the performance of this palette because some of these lighter, more pastel-y and brighter, more intense, not quite neon, but bright pigmented shades can be a little hit or miss for me regardless of the brand. So I was happy with how these felt and swatched. And I do think that this particular palette looks better on the eye than it does in swatch. So stay tuned because you will get to see this one on my eyes sometime next week. For now, we're going to work with the Abu Dhabi palette. So I'm just priming my lids with my favorite eyeshadow primer. It's the Ulta Matte Eye Primer as usual. Then I'm going to use this warm cream colored matte shade to sort of set my lids. And I just really lightly dusted that all over on top of my primer to give myself a nice smooth surface to work on. Next, I'm going to take the shade Rising Dunes. This is a really soft peachy orange color, and I'm going to put that all over the crease area, kind of transition area, especially when I'm testing out a new palette like I am here. But in general, my preferred way is to do a really, really super light application and then build up and up because you can always add more, but it's a lot more difficult to take away when it comes to eyeshadow. And I just like to see how the eyeshadow will react as I'm blending and blending over it, as I'm layering it up. How much can I build it up? This is not only a good technique to keep myself from getting out of hand, but it also just lets me know what the eyeshadow is going to be like to work with texturally. So I took my time layering that up on that crease area and also just used whatever was left over on the brush on the lower lids there. Then I'm going to use this deeper, almost like a rosy, warm brown on a fluffy brush, and I'm going to blend that all around the outer corner of my eye and up into the crease a little bit there. I wanted to keep this more contained to my lid space just because I think when it comes to really warm and rosy tones like this, if I do too much of a blown out look, it doesn't look that flattering on me personally. I think it just looks sort of irritated, but if I can control that shadow and keep it really contained to my lid, then I find it's really much more flattering for me that way. I could not choose between these two shimmers, so I decided to just mix them together. I just dipped my finger in back and forth between the two shades so that I could get a little bit of that rosy bronze and copper color both mixed together, and I just applied that over the rest of my lid space. I did find myself lacking a lighter sort of highlight shimmer color, so this was the perfect chance to use this Jelly Mud shadow from ColourPop. This is the 18K Jelly Mud shadow that just came out with their Precious Metals Mega Palette. So I dabbed that right around the inner corner just lightly for a little bit of a highlight. And then I used the ColourPop Movie Star BFF cream gel liner on the lower lash line, on the waterline, and also a little bit on the lower lash line between the inner corner and where I smudged some of that matte shadow. And then curled my lashes, added a little bit of the Essence Lash Without Limits mascara, and that's my finished look. This was super duper simple. It was very easy to create, and the shadows worked beautifully together. They layered and blended really nicely. I didn't have to do a lot of work to get a nice result. I do just wish that I had one more lighter highlight type of shade in the shimmers, but otherwise, love this look. I think it turned out really cute. Now, let's move on to everybody's favorite time. That's right, it's palette comparison time. At least it's my favorite time. I don't know if it's yours or not. I'm going to do 3 or 4 palette comparisons for each one of these, particularly the neutrals. I could just go all day, but I tried to give you a nice, concise set of comparisons here. So hopefully this gives you an idea of if you already have shades similar to this, or maybe if you already own, for example, this Haunted Europe palette, then this can give you an idea of the difference in the shades so that you're getting what you expect if you order the Oslo palette. Hopefully that made sense. I'm not sure if it did. I think it's always nice to have a familiar reference point, particularly if you have a different skin tone than me. You can get an idea of what these shades might look like in person for you. I am surprised to see that the Ghost Town USA palette wasn't quite as similar as I thought it was going to be. Even the brown shades just really aren't quite the same. More of the metallics are similar, in my opinion, but I'm happy because I like both of these. And the last Oslo palette comparison I want to do is with the ColourPop Stone Cold Fox Mega Palette. The ColourPop Mega Palettes are always the heroes of my comparison videos. I feel like they cover so much ground. And color-wise, these are pretty similar, but they would not serve the same purpose for me because the Stone Cold Fox palette is so much huger. So I love that I have a travel-friendly version of this color story that I'm already so very fond of. Now we're going to move over to some Abu Dhabi comparisons. The very first one that came to mind for me was the original travel palette. I really wanted to see if these were similar, and they really aren't. There's not one exact similar shade for me. Maybe that very first matte is kind of close, but obviously the undertones are really different. I think these two would work beautifully together as a whole color story. I also immediately pulled out one of my all-time favorite Nomad palettes, which is the Hudson Valley palette. And these, again, not very similar. That light creamy matte and then the very last warm orangey brown matte are pretty similar, but otherwise Hudson Valley is a lot more colorful. So I wouldn't even say that the Abu Dhabi palette is like a travel-friendly version of this color story, but I do think it would supplement nicely. Of course, I had to grab another ColourPop Mega palette. This is the Smokin' Hot palette, and these are dead on the exact same shades. But pretty much. Maybe you could make an argument for that last one not being quite warm enough in the Smokin' Hot palette to be the same, but the eye looks are going to be the same. And again, the Abu Dhabi palette is a great
very concise, travel-friendly version of these colors. So they're not going to serve the same purpose, at least for me personally in my collection. Last but not least, we're going to do the Canadian Rockies palette comparisons. This Ireland Atlantic Way palette has a pretty decently similar color story. I would say the deepest green and then the two shimmers are pretty similar, but otherwise not a whole lot of duping or exact same eye looks coming out of these. Definitely a little bit more overlap color-wise than I personally expected though. Now, a fan favorite, the Fire and Ice palette was a cult classic. I think this is one of those palettes that really put Nomad on the map. And these are not very similar at all. I really thought that Fire and Ice would give me more similarities than the Ireland palette, but I guess that's why we do these, so that we can really get a sense of the up close nitty gritty comparisons. I also pulled this Nomad Whistler Snow Lodge palette. This one has a lot of blues and greens, so I expected at least one hit here. And I will say, I don't think there's any single shades that are really what I would call dupes. Again, I think these would be great companion palettes, but these are not nearly as similar as I thought they were going to be. And the very last comparison for the Canadian Rockies palette is the ColourPop Mega Palette Aurora Struck, one of my favorites. And again, not as similar as I thought they were going to be. Aurora Struck really doesn't have a lot in the way of greens. Hopefully, all these comparisons are helpful, not in just visualizing the colors, but helping you figure out which palette or palettes would be right for you, especially if you're going to use them for travel, but mostly just bringing them into your collection in general.
I think all of these palettes are so cute, such a good idea. Personally, I'm most excited about this Oslo palette. I really enjoy a nice, quick little cool toned eye. And I know that this is going to pair really, really nicely with the original travel palette, which I've been a fan of and used so much. If you look at these three more neutral options together, you can see that the Oslo palette is really cool. The travel palette in the middle, the original Nomad Air palette, is very neutral in general, and then the Abu Dhabi palette is very warm. So you have a lot of options here. As much as I enjoy a toasty little eye look every now and then, I definitely see myself reaching for the Oslo palette more. So this is going to be joining my travel lineup for sure. And I love green eyeshadow. Green is definitely my second favorite colorful eyeshadow color to wear. My first favorite is purple. I wish there was a purple palette in this collection, but I'm just gonna hold out hope that this is the beginning of a little airport series. I would love to see them come out with three more and maybe do a purple, a blue, and a pink or something like that. I think this could be a really fun series, and these are so useful. If these perform and travel and hold up half as well as the original travel palette, then I think we have a serious hit on our hands. This comes at a perfect time too because it's almost summer. I have a couple of trips planned, so I'm definitely ready to put this to the test and pack it in my travel bag and see what happens. This packaging is so cute. I definitely already have more eye looks in the works, so keep an eye out for some more tutorials with these coming soon. Now's the time when I want to hear what you think about these new Nomad Air little travel palettes. Are you interested? Are you holding out for different colors? I always love to hear what you think about things too, so make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. What? Where was it? What? Wait, no, ma'am? I really love the color coordinated. I'm struggling. I feel like I already said that. I can't pay the rent. I can't pay the rent. You must pay the rent. They were really just little childhood rhymes about the evils of capitalism, huh? Never really thought about that until now. I really went for it with the monochromatic look. I've got Merit Tiger on the lips. I have the Kaja Dewy Bar and Cranberry Cooler on my cheeks. I don't have matching nails, but I do have matching earrings. Don't know if you can tell, but these have like a little red flower on top. Even when the nails don't match, I'm still going for it. Oh, and obviously I'm wearing red shirt. This is kind of what started it all because this is just what I put on this morning. Cute, cute. Well, where the heck did I put my phone? Little casually sweaty cheek. I am working on a video about the glow drops, so that'll be coming soon. I have a lot of things in the works right now. I hate having partially filmed videos sitting on my memory card. It makes me so stressed. I just want everything to be like filmed and done so I can edit it. But unfortunately, you just have to film things in parts sometimes, and I think these hand motions explain it all. You get it. I know you do. My husband brought home tacos for lunch today, which usually I don't get to see him until like super late at night because he always works late. But today he left work early and he brought me tacos, and not just like any tacos, like the good street tacos with a really spicy little salsa that comes in the little cup, and like chopped up raw onions and cilantro on top, and they serve it to you with like radishes and cucumbers on the side and lime wedges, and it was so good. And I just want you to know that you can totally buy my affection with really good, actually spicy salsa and street tacos. My favorite's tacos al pastor. What's your favorite type? Embrace it. Okay, I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore, so I gotta go. Thanks for watching this little bonus video. I hope that I get it done in time, and I appreciate you watching and just hanging out, and everybody who watches to the end and listens to the really, really weird stuff that I say. You're the real MVPs. See you in the next one. Okay, love your face. Bye.